We'll get started. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on which time zone you're in right now, or as you watch this later. Welcome to the first Pompe Community Open Meeting. We'll look to have these meetings regularly with an initial guest that it'll be a couple times a year with the purpose of providing awareness of activities and updates. And for this first one, the most obvious topic is what is this? And to set that up, we'll start with why. So why? Learning is a process, and our goal is definitely to increase our knowledge about Pompe. And if we do this really well, then all sorts of good things will happen, like improving diagnosis, improving treatments, improving availability of both, and having options that suit a range of needs for a range of folks in a range of situations, progressions, other situations, etc. So here we're just going to jump through and highlight a couple of the key points where knowledge is documented and has developed to get us to the point where we're at today, and what our trajectory might look like. So starting off with J.C. Pompe himself, first describing the first case that earned him the name of the disease. In the early 1930s, all the way through some of Corey's work, two Corey's work on glycogen metabolism discovering the lysosomes. First ERT attempted unsuccessfully, well before clinical trials were really well moderated and controlled. Hers described the concept of lysosomal storage disorders. And I would say, this first era of progress really had a capstone with Reuser and van der Ploeg discovering M6P pathways and describing the GAA gene, and then doing this incredible thing for community in the name of community, which is then sharing that with other key researchers so that the work could expand for the good of people affected by this disorder. Then in kind of the next year, we've got it there, the first knockout mouse or mouse model was developed, the first clinical trials initiated, and the first and phase 1 trial of what would be the first approved drug initiated a few years later, culminating in our first approved ERT just about 20 years ago, 18 or so. In the next era of progress, and I would say just to kind of add a note, because we capped that first one with describing how community really was a key player, especially at the end there. That second era of progress really was on the heels of some incredible community advocates and leadership of coming together from multiple different countries, multiple different organizations to form, and multiple different roles within the ecosystem to form sort of the impetus to create that progress. And so clearly that wouldn't have happened without community coming together in the first place. In the way that it did. We have some links here, by the way, up at the top there with to give a little bit of the history and some color to how all of this came about. Please use those or check those out later. I'd say the next era of progress, as we've gotten a group some highlighted stuff here, is we have a Pompe disease is added to the RUSP, the Recommended Uniform Screening Panel in the US, which means that we're starting to newborn screen for it here. We've got just recently a second and a third ERT approved, and we're sort of in a pretty exciting place today. So in summary, excuse me, today we're at on the order of 10,000 diagnosed people, and the number is probably more close to a few thousand, but 10,000 is like nobody would disagree with upper limit. But we because of newborn screening, we have the ability to understand that there's over 350,000 people worldwide who actually have Pompe. To date, we have screened over 19 million newborns for Pompe, with another 3.5 million screens happening annually. This is really an incredible progress. That means that for all of those kids, they'll have the chance of and the opportunity afforded with early detection, early diagnosis. For the IOPD or severe end of the spectrum, that is literally a life-saving diagnosis. And for the rest of the spectrum, what we're learning is that it is an opportunity to have timely intervention, timely management of the disease, so for their own health outcomes, that's incredible. But also for the rest of us, It also gives us sort of a clean slate to look at what progress looks like in a much earlier state so that we can start to understand interactions and mechanisms at a much earlier place. So this is a great accomplishment of our community, but this effort we'll see in a minute is really a lot more about global community more than just US-based community. So while we have 87% of births currently screening for Pompe in the US, and with line of sight to high 97% or so by the end of the year, we're still at less than 3% of worldwide births. So we need to again look at our worldwide community here. Just some other quick figures is that we've got 30 or so companies that are looking at Pompe or studying Pompe as part of their course of business. We've got 57 clinical trials ongoing and additional treatment modalities in development, which again increases the number of options. And so this is like setting the groundwork for a very exciting future for Pompe disease. But I think the thing here is that our trajectory from here is not guaranteed. And so when we look at like what is our trajectory going to look like, is it going to be sort of stagnant and coasting along at that red line pace? Is it going to be a little bit more exciting, where we're going to continue to increase the amount of knowledge that we can develop towards the benefit of the ecosystem? Or can we really accelerate that rate at which we're developing knowledge, like with the green line? And so this effort is about maximizing the likelihood that we will hit the green line, which is accelerating the rate at which we're developing knowledge. And the hypothesis is that this will happen with infrastructure and data that supports each role within the ecosystem. So jumping into the hypothesis, we have this rare disease ecosystem, and within it, the Pompe ecosystem. And we've got patients and families and doctors and scientists and pharmaceutical companies and advocates and regulators and a whole bunch of other people and roles in our ecosystem that I didn't find little graphics for. And like any ecosystem, each is playing their role to maximize their role. And there's definitely communications across that. We've seen that historically, and really that's been the basis of progress. But the further hypothesis again is that we can accelerate this progress by creating a hub that supports community within our ecosystem. So what that kind of looks like in a cheesy graphic form is that we create this open end of the funnel where everybody can kind of come to find community and find each other to increase interaction, increase the likelihood of interaction for the good of developing new knowledge. So a town square can be a central place for all things Pompe, for all people, for all roles within our ecosystem to facilitate ecosystem-wide interaction and optimization. This organization of our ecosystem will also help when people are looking to contribute or receive benefit from the community, and try to make it less of a torturous journey to do so, where everybody's kind of doing redundant work to find their own path to information and knowledge using the internet or phone calls or whatever other mechanisms they're trying to find community or connection. So again, in this way, we're opening up that funnel to fast track people to the resources that they need to maximize their contribution or benefit from the ecosystem. And so then there's this a whole bunch of other roles that also kind of come into play and benefit that I didn't find the graphics for, so we put them in a little bubble there. So how do we do this? We kind of say we want to build this town square for everybody, but first we kind of need to say, what are we about? And one of the things to emphasize here is that this effort is not strictly an advocacy effort. It is not an organization to compete or to do anything with existing efforts. It is meant to be a sort of an infrastructure project to build this hub for all of our community to come together, with each maintaining the things that they still care about and their autonomy and everything else, but more of a when there is collaboration that will help us, a way to do that. So these words on the left describe what that vision and mission is, and set of beliefs, a set of beliefs that encourage the right behavior and culture within our ecosystem. And then the stuff on the right is a little bit more succinctly like what some of those foundational beliefs are. And we think that the folks that who agree that these are the kind of the right set of framework for describing our North Star we want you to come on down and participate. So what does that look like? The framework. It's meant to be a town square for everybody, and the work this far has not been a secret by any means. It's just been in pre-work, and from the folks that we've engaged so far, there's been sort of a directional understanding of the concept, but the framework and how various folks come together has been less clear. So this is hopefully addressing that at a high level. We're building this town square for everybody. It's an infrastructure project, not a competitive advocacy organization trying to step on any toes or of any existing advocacy efforts from patients, from families, from industry, from anywhere. It's meant to support and bring together. Pompe.Community is the high-level presence for this effort. And we're really excited that we've got Global Genes, who has sort of this incredible track record of building community in the rare disease space, as sort of an embedded partner and support system overall for the project, and then also in some very specific ways we'll get to in a second. And then we'll have this Pompe consortium, which is formed to architect this community. And again, this community is intended to be for everybody. So the Pompe consortium is formed as a collaborative to actively build the infrastructure to serve the ecosystem, with members, again, the key word here is active, building community, building infrastructure, working in cross-functional groups to plan and execute strategy. And then we also recognize that data is this huge important piece of it all, where we currently do not have a broadly available global data set for research use, much less one where patients or individuals contributing data have full ownership and autonomy of their data. Global Genes has this project, this research project called RareX, and there's a whole bunch of sort of unique infrastructure and constraints and requirements around that, but from a regulatory perspective as well, because we're also looking at protected health information and differences between countries and all these kinds of things. So that part will live in RareX's execution for the data pooling project, with obviously the relationship between the consortium and RareX to inform and steer there. But again, data is this critical piece of infrastructure, its own set of rules and regulations. RareX has the platform and the expertise that is consistent with community-driven ethos to help us execute on that. So architects, this is a little bit about the Pompe consortium itself that supports all this. This is where stuff gets done. So there's a recognition that we have a lot of talent, a lot of energy, a lot of motivation within our community, but it isn't always clear for each individual or organization on which direction or path to point that. And the intent of the consortium is to provide this in an efficient way, such that there's space for folks who want to lean in and find the activity to do something that aligns with their passions and works with their available time to contribute to the health of the ecosystem. So how does this look? There's for participation, there's an agreement. It's simple. It's one page currently, and it's just to acknowledge the commitment and also at a high level set an expectation for what respectful engagement looks like, because we're going to have people coming together from different roles. There are certain things that are and are not appropriate to discuss. And so this is each of those roles kind of acknowledging that and agreeing that this place is sort of a safe place for collaboration across from your perspective within your role with other roles, without sort of putting yourself in a position to get in trouble. There's also a profile which captures some info about you or your organization that helps get things set up. And one thing I like to point out there is that it also gives you a chance to share any skills that you may have or have access to that can be used for the benefit of the community. Again, just like any community, any ecosystem, it's really important that we have a diversity of perspective, of skill sets, of contributions, and it's going to be no different as we grow here. So we have that there. So in summary, The consortium is a place for people who want to get involved directly in a working group to provide steering, strategy, and planning, or as someone who wants to support actualizing all of that as a benefit of some element of ecosystem health. Just in time, we're going to hand it over to Carmen to share a little bit about global genes and rare X from here.
Okay, pardon me. Thank you, Ryan. So I'm Carmen. I direct scientific programming at Global Genes, and in particular for the Rare X platform. My guess is that many of you here today, if you've been in the Pompe community broadly for any number of years, have probably heard of Global Genes or know Global Genes. Global Genes was founded 16 years ago as a nonprofit organization to provide support and connections to rare disease families. So if you happen to have or be impacted by a rare disease that didn't have a large, well-organized foundation specific to that rare disease, you didn't really have a place to go. So Global Genes was founded to become that place. Over the years, we've grown considerably and become like a clear leader in rare disease advocacy with lots of different programming. And just over a year ago, Global Genes and Rare X merged. So Rare X was founded as a nonprofit health technology company to really solve issues with rare disease data. So often in rare disease communities, data is either very sparse, it's hard to come by the data, or data exists, but it might exist in a natural history study that is housed in an academic center, and it's very difficult to get that data out and get it shared, or it might be housed by an industry funder of a study that it's difficult to get it shared. This is very common across rare diseases. And so Rare X was really founded to solve some of those problems and break down those barriers and provide a way that patients and families can be the owners of their own data. It's kind of came out funny. And they can really provide direction and input on the stewardship of that data. And what I mean by that is that on our platform, on the Rare X platform, individuals can come in and tell us, I want my data shared for research, and this is how I want it shared. And we are a very, very unique research study. We have an umbrella IRB research protocol, and we are very unique in the way that we share data, in that the first layer, the first tier of how we look at data access for researchers aligns with the way patients and families have told us they want it used. That's the way we bucket it. We don't bucket it first by disease. We bucket it first by what do people tell us that they want their data? How do people tell us they want their data shared? So that's really, really critical. We really developed, so I came over from the Rare X side, so I tend to say we with Rare X prior to the merger. But we really are here to support rare disease patient advocates and patient advocacy communities in collecting really structured research-grade data and getting it in the hands of more researchers than has been possible before. We are also a global platform. So thank you, Ryan. So our platform does enable global data collection and sharing. This is a massive lift. It is a massive lift to be able to meet the regulatory requirements, including but not limited to GDPR in the EU around data collection and sharing. I already talked about patient ownership. We don't sell your data because we can't. Like the way that we set up the entire research study and the way that the informed consent process works is that individuals own their own data. We steward the data. We manage the data. The infrastructure costs. So we are a nonprofit. Broadly, Global Genes is a nonprofit, and that does, it just asked me to confirm my speaking language as Italian. I'm pretty sure I'm speaking in English. Bizarre. I don't know any Italian, I think. Maybe buongiorno. which I'm sure
I
is
think that's
awesome.
just a translating function for the closed captions. Of
Oh,
course, we've got folks from around the world here, and that we'll listen
which
to.
is awesome. But I
So
was like,
hopefully we'll also get some feedback on how the translations are working. And of course, this is an important part of building out a true inclusive global community, is that we have to address some of the language stuff going forward. So to our friends and partners here that are in other languages, please don't be shy about feedback afterwards about how this was useful or a challenge.
perfect. Um, what else did I want to say here? Oh, I was talking about, so funding. As a nonprofit, we do have some philanthropic funding to support our mission. But then we also do have some programmatic support. So in total transparency, for the project that we are doing in Pompe, we do have some funding from currently 2 industry funders to help get this project going and started. And we're working on getting some more. This is actually like a really huge achievement, and it's really beautiful to me, and I think to many others, that there are industry partners, there are biopharma companies willing to come in and say, we believe in this kind of effort, we believe in patient-led data collection, and we're willing to come in and share in that and not to make everything competitive. So really, we're trying to provide the space for that to happen. I don't think I need to read everything. By now, you've read everything on the screen while I'm just chatting. And I want to make sure to leave time for some other things. So is there anything else that you think I should cover specifically, Ryan?
No, I think that's good. And again, the recording will be available afterwards, so folks can come in and make sure that everything that we promised or you promised on the screen here and said verbally uh, is true, and we'll hold ourselves to it. So I do want to we can switch back into the idea this, and we're coming to the end, and we can have some kind of discussion. Um, the real intention here is centered around a collaborative spirit. And so how do we bring again together folks from different ranges within our disease experience, from different parts and different roles of the ecosystem, from different places geographically, with different skill sets and perspectives. So this is just a sort of a collection. 2 weeks ago, our Pompe community was well represented at the World Symposium in San Diego, which is sort of the largest annual scientific conference around the umbrella class of disorders that Pompe falls into. And rather than kind of take my word for what collaboration might look like, I wanted to invite Heather to share her perspective on what it meant to kind of come together. And one of the cool things, Heather runs Pompe Alliance as an introduction while she gets herself off mute. Heather runs Pompe Alliance, and I know I asked Heather to share her thoughts because I know that this collaborative spirit is deeply ingrained within her. One of the cool things that they did was they hold a monthly meeting, and they invited every other advocacy org they could find to come and speak at their meeting, just to kind of again foster this spirit of collaboration, this recognition that all of us want the same thing, which is really to advance the knowledge sufficiently well in Pompe disease that we can do some things to help everybody with it. So Heather, I'll turn it over to you for a second.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. So this was my first time attending the World Symposium in person. I attended virtually, I believe it was 2022. It was a totally different experience being there in person and getting to meet with other advocates, scientists, researchers in person, and to make those personal connections. I also had the opportunity to meet with consortium members from Sanofi and Astellas, and it just gave me a glimpse into this collaborative spirit that everyone has. And I kept hearing industry partners say what a great community the Pompe community is and how well we were represented there. So as a social worker, collaboration, I've seen it work firsthand. when we would come together from a variety of backgrounds to help families and children in need. So I'm really excited to be a part of this community and to work with other people who are passionate about this work. I just want to say a little quote that my supervisor said to me when I was in my former life, when I was still working full time. He said to me, "A wave of passion is an unstoppable force." That was not his quote. I'm not sure who said it, but I think that very accurately represents this community. And when we get together to work on this program, I think we could be unstoppable.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. I think you should start saying that's your quote, that you made it up, and then we can start making t-shirts that Heather Shorten said this. So yeah, we're sort of at the end of the formal part of this. The code on the left gets you to the homepage of Pompe.Community, and there's our participation form there. With respect to the research, the data pooling project with RareX is intended to be that throttle to accelerate research. Using participant-owned data that will advance our understanding in Pompe. There'll be more specifics on how to participate in that coming soon. But in the spirit of inclusiveness and all of that kind of thing, we will of course want to be open to folks that are in different places in their relationship with Pompe. You're definitely not required to participate in the data pooling project to participate in the community side, or vice versa. There's no there's no tattoos or membership fees or anything that you're required to. We can do a secret handshake if we really want, but that's also not required. So on the right is a code, an additional code that if you're interested in participating more actively in this effort alongside of the awesome folks that are listed on the bottom there, who've already said we're in, there's the code on the right is for you, and that's to get to the Pompe consortium page to sort of log your interest there. Again, we're really, and again, if it's there's meant to be zero judgment whether you are participating in any of it or all of it. It is here for you if you want, for whatever role that you're in. If you're a great resource for the Pompe community, but the consortium really doesn't fit with you, we're still going to want to share that with through the community page, so that folks can find you. Because again, the most important thing here is that we're helping to accelerate the knowledge development, and also helping to accelerate the community. And that's meaning that we also need to amplify any of the right resources, independent of any kind of sort of political rationale or ties or anything like that. We're going to operate with a spirit of transparency, so that we can hold ourselves honest and accountable to living up to that ethos statement that we had earlier.